Hi again then guys, and welcome to, of course, another breakdown of one of the vehicles from the 1.29 update. Technically now we've already moved on from that to 1.3, which was of course a more minor update, as we usually have following generally a few days or a week or so after the big update with the new cars and new tracks. And of course this car was supposed to be yesterday, this review was supposed to be yesterday, but we had the breaking news about the Ferrari F50 coming to the game, presumably in the coming update, so I bumped it forward a day because I knew that if I'd released this video then, nobody would have watched it in comparison to that breaking news. So we bumped it forward to today. So this car is of course the last of the 3 Super GT 500 cars that we've taken a look at and done tunes for. First of all, we looked at the Nissan, which is a fantastic all-rounder, extremely capable, but also very, very forgiving. Then we looked at the Honda, by far the most challenging of the 3 cars, but also the fastest under most circumstances when tuned and used correctly. And now you have this one. Now, from what I've seen in comments and messages and heard from people, this car seems to be mixed for some people. Certain people find it to be a little slippery or twitchy compared to the other 2, or just slower in general, and then you have other people like myself who actually like this car because of the fact that it is the less obvious choice. It is the underdog, and that kind of gives it a certain charm. Now for me, that is a huge factor in what car I choose to use, because 9 times out of 10 I will specifically not choose the car that is the fastest, because that's what everybody does. I will choose the car that is the underdog because I would rather have an interesting race than necessarily win every time. So for instance, I would often choose the Panos among Group 1 racing, or the equivalent to that in the past of the franchise, like Le Mans car stuff. I would choose the Lister Storm to go up against GT cars. Again, it's not strictly speaking as good, but I would still go for that kind of thing. I would say that this Lexus kind of falls into that same category here. But with that in mind, how far behind is it, if at all? If it does turn out to be slower, is it fast enough to still at least compete against the other 2 cars, with or without balance of performance? And of course, by definition, can it compete against the 3 newer ones as well? Well, to answer the second question first, the simple answer is no. It's not quick enough to even put a dent in the newer cars. They are so much faster even than the best of these that it just doesn't stand a chance. The Honda can sometimes have a chance, but that's about it, just a chance. This one, as the slowest of these 3, of course doesn't stand a chance. Now, for those who didn't check out my tune setup, as fewer people did, if you look at the view numbers of the Lexus compared to the other 2 after about a day, it was less, and that didn't surprise me because it is a less popular car. That speaks to the fact that people don't even try it out in the first place, and even people who do try it will quickly notice that maybe they just don't like the car as much, it certainly doesn't have the pedigree of the other 2, and maybe they just feel that it is slower. Now for me, I also found it to be slower. Around Dragon Trail, for instance, with my 3 tunes, I did a 133, I think it was, in the Honda, then a 134 in the Nissan, and finally a 135 in this Lexus. So to say it's slower, it's one of those things where it's technically true, but not really, because it's not that far behind. It is slower though, so of course you do need to bear that in mind if you watch my reviews purely with the intent of using the best possible car, because of course you can use them for that, but it's still a car that can win events. However, I would recommend the Lexus in particular to people who are, despite the fact that it is forgiving, more experienced, because a more experienced driver will be able to do more with a car like this. So for instance, if you're a really seasoned driver in this Lexus, going up against people who are less experienced but in the Honda and the Nissan, you could have a pretty decent battle. Choosing this car, for want of a better statement really, is to be deliberately, or deliberately even, giving yourself a disadvantage, almost like increasing the challenge of the race. If you choose the Lexus, chances are you're trying to make the race a little bit more difficult for yourself, because it is, factually speaking, the slowest of the 3. However, if you choose the Nissan, you're probably like me, you just go for the obvious choice sometimes if you just want to get the job done. Or of course, if you go for the Honda, you're looking for the absolute pure performance, the ultimate pro driving experience. You're just there to win. So it does it does pan out interestingly, I think, where all three cars fall under the same regulations but can be so different. And that's something which, not to get off on a tangent, there are certain categories of racing that I'm not a fan of because they don't have that vibe, where these cars genuinely do feel completely different to each other. Now, as far as the Lexus, in an overall sense, I would say that it's like the Maserati. It's the kind of car that I would only fully recommend to those two groups of people. One is, as I just said, professionals who want more of a challenge, or the second group, which is myself, where you just want to support the underdog, you want to try something which most people don't use, or maybe you just want to try something different that's a bit oddball or a bit undervalued, because this car certainly is just that. It is not slow. Make no mistake, this is not a slow car, and to put that into some perspective again, even though this was the slowest of the 3 GT500s that we had in this pack around Dragon Trail, its lap time was still faster than my modified and upgraded Porsche RSR and the Group 3 Beetle, both of which had a lot more power, in the high 600 region, even almost 700 I think, compared to this car's 487. So this is not slow, it's just technically not quite as quick as the other two. So those are my overall thoughts as far as the Lexus goes. It's a great car, it's just not as great, and that's unfortunate, because when racing gets as competitive as these are, any car that is just a fraction slower seems like an eternity of difference. That's just the way it works. When racing gets to this level of performance, like formula cars, prototypes, then half a second is like half a mile. It's a huge difference. So overall, it's not the car to go for if you just want to win everything. It's the car to go for if you want to change it up a bit or to give yourself more of a challenge. Overall, in terms of tuning, in terms of handling, I think it's a lot better than some people give it credit for, but again, it does tend to get overlooked because people already assume, based on the road-going version, which isn't exactly an amazing car, that this one probably isn't even worth a look, and that is wrong. It is worth checking out. But that's it for this pick overall. Of course, I will see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.